the conversation I would love for us to have today is on God. And yesterday during the live, somebody commented, God, question mark? So that got me thinking, I use the word God, and I know that the word God means a million different things to a million different people. So what if I share what are my thoughts on the divine, because they have definitely evolved over the years. So that's what I want to dive in with you today. And please comment in the comments, what are your thoughts on God? How do you define God? What is your personal relationship with God? How do you address and talk about God, right? What is the word, the name that you use for God? So please share. I look forward to reading your comments as I speak about this. So to start from the very beginning, right? The way good stories start, or the way extensive stories start. I grew up in a communist country. I did not grow up with religion. I don't even know if I have necessarily heard the word God until much later on in my life. I'm not joking. There was never a conversation about prayer or angels or God. I mean, for crying out loud, we didn't even celebrate Christmas. The winter season celebration for us was always New Year's. And so I have to tell you, when the political regime in the country changed and all of a sudden people were free to express religiously and spiritually, we were so confused because we didn't know whether we should celebrate Christmas. How do you celebrate Christmas? Or should we give gifts on Christmas or New Year's? Like, literally, when do we exchange gifts? All these questions. So I really didn't grow up with an idea about God or a divine force supporting me or helping me. It was me and my tenacity. All right, if anything gets done, it gets done because I get it done. That was the level of support I had. And of course, all the hard work and so forth. And so then I very clearly remember the moment, literally the moment, the second, the minute when the communist regime was overthrown. It was such an interesting moment. I was sitting on the couch in our living room, and Dad was on one side, Mom was on my other side, and we were all watching TV. And what was being broadcast on TV was the Communist Party Congress, just the Communist Party meeting. And the political elite of the communist country on TV, literally on TV, created a coup and replaced the president. And there was this huge dramatic moment of the camera showing the president's jaw being wide open and him being like, what is happening? And so I didn't quite understand what was really happening because I was still rather young. I was between 8 and 9, but I could tell my parents' reaction, right? I could tell that they were both just stunned and they were looking at each other and then looking back at the TV. So that's when, that age around 8 or 9 is when everything changed, and not only in terms of politics, but also in terms of the openness towards spirituality. And so because of the Teresa, this is so beautiful of you. I miss you too. And so because of the change that was happening, all of a sudden everybody was free to express and to experience and to learn. And I have to tell you, it was literally free for all. That there was no judgment and something is better than the other, because these were people who for 45 years have been deprived any connection with the mystical, any sense of connection with there being more to life. Literally, the only people who could go to church were the grandmas who grew up with that kind of belief, and also they were not afraid of being incarcerated or sent out to a work camp, or not given any advancement in their career. So literally, only grandmas were going to church. And so all of a sudden, there was an openness. In the same conversation, people would be talking about using the Mayan runes to predict the future, or astrology, or going to church, or the Bible, or UFOs. Like literally, it was just free for all. And so it was in this environment that I actually discovered past life regression. I can go into a deeper story here, but I'm going to just stick to God. Let's stick to God. And so I remember in these very early years, people really being confused. I kid you not. Like what do we do with ourselves? And so I even remember having this I swear, I had a conversation with my grandma where I was telling her, Grandma, there is no God. And Grandma was like, of course there is God. I think by then I was 11 years old. And the reason why I was so convinced that there's no God is because I had watched a debate on TV. And it seemed very logical to me, based on all the arguments presented, that the person who said there is no God won the debate. So I was convinced there is no God. So that's what I was telling my grandma. I can only roll my eyes at myself right now. And so time passed on, and I have to tell you, in my late teens, my early 20s, it was still quite a confusion, even though I had started having personal experiences that there's more to life because of past life regression. I had quite a lot of confusion about the whole thing, right? Like, for example, why would Jesus be the only son of God? What about me? What am I doing here? Right? Like, what about me? And so I dove into the books we all have access to. I dove into the sources to learn, to understand, to experience. And so then over time, I have really created a very broad understanding of God for myself. For years, I even had the hardest of times of even using the word God. I'm not joking. I remember when Wayne Dyer was taping the PBS special for his show on his book Wishes Fulfilled. I was present. I was part of the experience because I was part of his book Wishes Fulfilled. In the book Wishes Fulfilled, he had included, I mean, it's still included, the full transcript, part of the full transcript, but unedited part of the full transcript of his past life regression with me. And so I was right there with the whole crew. It was really fun to experience the PBS show being created. You know what stands out as a very interesting memory of that moment for me. So one of the guests on that PBS special was Anita Morjani, who had a near-death experience, who had healed and who had literally healed her from leukemia. I discovered Anita's work, and I am the one who put Anita in touch with Wayne Dyer and with Hay House, and that's how we get to have the extraordinary Anita Morjani nowadays serve the world with her message. And so as the PBS show was being created, it was so interesting how Anita couldn't talk about being healed from cancer. She couldn't use the word cancer for being healed from the disease that she had because of broadcasting rules and regulations and all of that. It was just... that's neither here nor there. That's literally just a fun tidbit I want to share with you. And so in that book, Wishes Fulfilled, but also in the PBS special, Wayne Dyer has a very powerful moment in which he teaches people I am God. And I had this private conversation with him. I remember this conversation so clearly. I said to him, Wayne, I cannot say I'm God. It sounds like a blasphemy to me. It sounds like I'm doing something so terribly wrong. Because you know, God is big and powerful, and me is this little me, and like, no, that just seemed literally like a blasphemy. And of course, Wayne, in his characteristic loving presence, laughed at me lovingly, right, with me, at me, and he said to me, can you say, I am love? And I said to him, of course, no problem, of course, I am love. And he said, well, God is love. So why wouldn't you able to say, I'm God? That blew my mind. That was truly the first moment when I created such a deep personal presence, that conversation with him, created such a deep personal feeling that God is me. I'm God. We've got one thing going on here. I'm of God. So that old question of, well, Jesus is the Son of God, but what about Mira? All of a sudden it was, well, Mira is the daughter of God too, right? And it was a feeling of just loving energy moving into me and just really just embodying me. I don't know how else to say this. And so over the years, I have started using, so around that time when it was really hard for me to say I'm God, I was leaning towards all that is, as the word I would use for the divine, all that is. And all that is really all that is. It's me, it's Teresa, it's Hope, it's everybody who is with us on the line watching. It's you, it's my cat, it's the big tree behind me, it's all the ducks and geeses, it's the ETs. It's literally everyone and everything. Consciousness, all consciousness creates all that is. And I could work with that definition. I was like, I can get behind that definition. And then, of course, along with this, I also developed an extraordinary passion for quantum physics because, you know, quantum physics is a beautiful modern language of expressing mysticism in a way that people think it's scientifically supported. So really, mysticism and quantum physics basically speak of the same thing. And so another word for God is the quantum field. And I love that as well, right? Infinite potential and possibilities. And my progression with this experience of knowing and understanding the divine, God, the quantum field, the mind of all that is, became even more personal and even more intimately me, connected to me, when I began doing magic mushroom journeys. Those really allowed me to step outside, to see the world as so much more deeply and powerfully and profoundly connected, for me to fall in love with the world, to feel the world, to be able to transcend boundaries and limitations, that all of a sudden the definition of God became exactly what Wayne Dyer said to me all those years ago: love. And here's the interesting thing. The more love I allow myself to surrender into, there's always another layer of love. Always another experience of deeper and more profound and more astounding love. To the point where I sit there in my meditations and my mushroom journeys, and I'm thinking, I know nothing. Like, this deeper experience of profound love is even bigger than anything I've ever experienced before, right? I'm always discovering the next layer and the next layer, and my own personal capacity to be a container to hold all that infinite love. And so I I have come to truly not only believe, because this is beyond belief, all right? This is sheer knowing. This is pure knowing. I know it like I know it like I know it. That this infinite love, and that we call God, the quantum field, spirit. I love how Hope gave us a few words here. Let me read them. Source, I love that one. Yes, yes, yes. How all these words we use and describe, that infinite creativity is so lovingly and profoundly expressing itself through each and every one of us, that it's literally like a loving presence. It's like a divine benevolent, skewed in our favor atmosphere, like literally permeating everything, that I can safely lean into, that knows that I know is in my corner, that I know that instantly creates and provides literally the slightest thought I have. It's the extraordinary feeling. I love describing it like this. So these are the palms of my hands, and so it's the extraordinary feeling of just like literally being right there in the palms of the hands of God and being held with infinite compassion and understanding in ways that I discover every time, and yet profoundly amazes me every time. It's truly benevolent. It's truly extraordinary in its creativity. As you can tell, I'm really short on words here. And so much bigger than what we usually call love. And that's why I was saying to you, there's always another layer and another layer and another layer. So these days for me, and of course I imagine the definition will continue to grow and expand as my personal experience of God expands, but these days for me, God is a very personal force I lean into, that I feel held by and supported. Me and God, we have a personal relationship, all right? The girl who used to deny God and say, oh, there is no God, it has all of a sudden, all these years later, standing in front of you and saying, I so deeply desire for you to experience and create that personal connection and relationship with the divine for yourself, because then everything gets on a different meaning. Everything becomes so much more possible and expansive and safe and free. Yeah, so that's why we're talking about God today. Let me see. Hi Dee, I'm so happy to have you here. So that's really the reason why I thought it appropriate for us to speak about God today, so that I encourage you, whichever practices and modalities you use to connect with the divine, to find even deeper layers of diving into it, connecting with it, experiencing it, trusting it, conversing with it, because it's a wonderful journey. So I look forward to being with you again tomorrow for our live to celebrate the winners of our giveaway. Meanwhile, wherever you are in the world, thank you for being with me live, and for those of you who are watching later, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm profoundly grateful for you. I'm deeply appreciative of each and every one of you, because we all resonate and vibrate to that deep desire for the mystical, for the spiritual, for the connection with more than what meets the eye. And for that, you're my people. You are my soul family.